As it stands now, Stellaris is a lot of fun to play at any level, which is a very rare thing to see. There are of course some moments where it is slower than the others, but there's always something to do or look forward to at any point in the game. Stellaris, even though is not strictly a turn-based game, definitely mastered that one more turn quality. I even dare say better than Civilization series. Yes, I know. Not only do you have a lot of progress bars, you got lots of plans that take a long time to execute and can be changed midway through, just like running a real complex system. At one point, I'm reforming my economy to accommodate advanced resources and structures, and then boom, I'm at war and must start producing alloys instead, so it keeps you on your toes, and when that is resolved, you return back to what you were doing. I also would like to mention, in those quiet moments, which seems to be the most common critique of Stellaris, they're also very important, especially in multiplayer games, simply because things are quiet on your side of the galaxy doesn't mean that is the case on the other side. As such, these slow moments are times to plot, scheme, and plan for your next expansion. When you are aware of all of those tools at your disposal, there is really no slow moments. I just want to start by answering that criticism of Stellaris that most intermediate players seem to have. Of course, the most common criticism is the learning curve, but honestly, in comparison to a lot of other games, Stellaris is the easiest one to learn by far. Now, mastery, that's a whole different topic. But with all that being said, there are a few things that could be improved upon in my opinion. First is the randomization of resources. It is often a diplomatic hot topic when you have some resource-rich systems on the borders between your empires. However, discovering these systems oftentimes comes down to RNG, and while in general the sample size should mitigate this issue, that's not always the case. The greatest example is the precursor empires on huge maps. If you started at one of the precursors with a size 25 Ecumenopolis chance, a fully prepared 25 size Ecumenopolis, you will be greatly far ahead of those who do not even have a chance to find such precursors. As such, increasing the amount of precursors and streamlining them to give very similar resources instead of the currently unbalanced ones would be much better for the game balance. And what I'm talking about, even if you do get a precursor, if it's not the one that really fits with your strategy, it's just not very useful. Not to mention the effort that it requires to get those precursors. Alternatively, the empires with those precursor system and bonuses should have less colonizable planets or resources in their vicinity to make up for that bonus. This could be explained simply by, hey, the precursors have stripped this area of resources while they were around. And here you have an in-story justification. Similar problem is the L-gates. Sure, having a space race to open the gates for a chance to encounter Grey Tempest is a lot of fun. It's not. In fact, just for reference, Grey Tempest destroyed 80% of life in my first 2.2 game because AI opened the L-gates before they were ready, and I could barely stop the Tempest, but the potential bonuses from nanites and all those colonizable planets, considering the fact that Grey Tempest is not guaranteed, you might just get nothing or, just empty systems. It's simply, for people who don't have any L-gates, it's quite frustrating, to see other people having so much fun. Also, rare resources. At this point, I think it's a bug to an extent that Zro simply doesn't spawn in some maps. While rare resources have been revamped and their use has been completely changed, resources such as dark matter are basically useless for the most part of the game, and are, from what I've seen, only used at late game ship components, which seem kind of anticlimactic since some empires get pretty generous gain of dark matter for the most of the game. In Eternum campaign, for example, I have no precursors or L-gates or wormholes, but we got a dimension portal which gives dark matter. A resource that is plentiful on black holes, and it's mostly market fodder. That's kind of anticlimactic. The combat changes have been quite good for the game in my opinion. It is a little hard to learn due to lack of resources to teach certain builds such as dodge corvette spam or anti-corvette destroyers. It is great that we have Viki accessible from within the game, but these builds should also be available to players. And by builds, I mean these compositions, certain meta compositions, so that, you know, players can catch up and understand to much more advanced players. So those are mostly going to be useful for intermediate and advanced players. Not to mention, when someone takes a break and comes back, it just seems that the first question they ask is, what's the fleet meta now? I could mention the AI, but being a software engineer myself, I know how difficult AI can get. Hence why for decades we have been giving AI more resources to raise the difficulty, which on highest difficulties changes the way you played. To put it simply, the way you would play against the best human opponent is not nearly the same way you would play against the AI. Against AI, you play like a puzzle. Against a human, you play to maximize your value. Those who have played against like the high-level AIs in Civilization will know what I mean. You need to use some exploits that you know AI has in its openings that normal humans do not. Lastly, I will mention the population mechanic. It is good in theory, but in practice it's got major problems, such as the best way to raise your population growth and economy is colonizing a new planet to get that +3 base growth bonus, which makes no sense. Why is it that people start breed like rabbits only on a new planet? And let's not forget the fact that this means that your entire production is tied to your population. But going back to what we're talking about, as you know, that such mechanics, you know, forcing people to colonize planets simply to keep up, hamstrings stall players and also requires getting lucky on your planets. Because in order to have a good economy, now you need population. And to get fastest growing population, you need planets. And for planets, you need systems and inevitably rely on RNG and ignoring the admin cap to have a competitive economy. So as I was trying to optimize to play Tall for my Tall Overlord strategy, I found that Tall in 2.2 is just a wide empire who optimizes for its admin cap exceeding debuffs. That's about it. Not to mention, I also would like to touch upon another point of population system. This makes no sense in an advanced civilization. Now, for, say, in a game like Civ, it would make sense that your population would determine how much of an economic strength you would have, because, you know, there is not much of automation for most of the game. There is not as much as streamlining and everything. But in 2300... really? We still have to rely on, you know, people to get resources all the time? Now, I know there are robots and everything, but with the factories these days, you know, not even just these days, let's imagine for 2200. Do we really think we will need millions of people or billions of people just to have a good production? I mean, after some point, humans or organics become a liability more than a production source. I mean, let's look at, because by this game's logic, the greatest economy should be hands down China and India. But if you look at actual GDP numbers, that is not the case. China is pretty close. India, not so much. I mean, they're still out there, but, you know, nowhere near that of United States. So why is that? You know, the simplest answer for that is technology, because economy is a complex thing, especially with the technology. Your economy does not have to depend on that raw production. And right here, it feels more like you're playing Age of Empires, because your production depends on your population. I just don't think that's a good system. Even if... no. I don't know. I mean, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think it could stay, but the fact that your best way to get more growth is that colonizing planets, that should definitely go away. These are, of course, in addition to the bug fixes and potential exploits, which is kind of quite an obvious point. The recent changes to make the weapon types easier to process have been a great addition, in my opinion, to the fleet combat. With that being said, I guess that's kind of all I had. But what do you guys think? What do you think would make Stellaris a much more interesting and much more fun game in general? In my opinion, it's one of the best games out there in terms of, well, a lot of things, and both the strategy, the sheer stories that you can create out of it. It's an incredible experience, so do let me know in the comments what we would like to see more in Stellaris, and we'll see you next time.